Hello, dear friends. I, Dr. Seda Sara, welcome you all in Anatomy Student Zone. And today, the topic that we are going to cover is inguinal canal anatomy. So, to remember the anatomy of inguinal canal, think about a simple tunnel. And what this simple tunnel is, this tunnel is passing through a thick wall. And what that thick wall in a human body is, this thick wall is a multi-layered barrier that is holding everything inside you. Like this is a layer of a muscle which is external oblique, internal, transversus abdominis muscle. So this multi-layered barrier is having a tunnel inside it, and that tunnel we name as an inguinal canal. This canal is present in our body. It's just like a safe passageway. Through this wall, structure can travel from inside of our abdomen to outside. Canal that, as I told you, it's a tunnel. It's 4 centimeter long. It's located just above the crease of your groin. In a gross anatomy, if we are going to see the crease of your groin, so that's the landmark for inguinal canal, and it is going to represent the point of inguinal ligament. Before I cover the detailed anatomy of inguinal canal, it's important to have a knowledge about inguinal ligament. What inguinal ligament is, historically, it's also named as Poppert ligament, and that we name after a French surgeon, Francois Poppert. So, as you can see here, the history is given over this slide, so you can read. So, we will see later on the ligament, that is inguinal ligament. It forms the floor of this tunnel, and the tunnel was inguinal canal. So inguinal ligament is going to form a floor of inguinal canal. You all know outermost muscle of your abdomen. What's the name of that muscle? Yes, it's external oblique. So inguinal ligament is simply the bottom edge of external oblique that has been rolled up and tucked under itself to create a thick, sturdy hem. And I'm sure you know the meaning of a sturdy. Sturdy means strong, and a hem is like a bottom edge of a piece of a cloth, as you can see over here, that is folded, so that it can provide a strength to that edge of piece of a cloth. So it's just like a inguinal ligament. It's external oblique that is rolled up and it's tucked so that it can provide a strength. So this ligament is going to extend from spherical spine to a pubic tubercle. So now we prepare to learn about a inguinal canal. Just a revisit or a summarized form that I told you earlier, that inguinal canal is a tunnel, and this tunnel is passing through a thick wall, and this thick wall is made up of anterior abdominal wall muscle. You all know about inguinal ligament, that is a rolled up free lower edge of a external oblique aponeurosis muscle. This inguinal canal is not and straight. This is an oblique passage, you know. Why it's oblique? It's also having a great clinical significance that I will cover later on. So this oblique passage is 4 centimeter or 1.5 inches, and it's located in a lower part of anterior abdominal wall. Inguinal canal, you have to focus on a medial half of inguinal ligament. So it's just situated above the medial half of a inguinal ligament, as you can see in this image as well. So it's oblique, so that's why it's directed downward, forward, and medially. And there is also a difference of this canal in a male and females. If we talk about a male, this canal is larger as compared to females. Another important point to remember is inguinal canal is having two rings, and these rings, you know very well, these are deep inguinal ring and a superficial inguinal ring. These rings are just like an entry and an exit point from where the structure, as I told you, they will enter from abdomen to a groin area, lower down into a male and female. So this canal is a passageway. So of course it need an entry and an exit point. We covered there was a difference of a inguinal canal length in a male and female. Similarly, there is also a difference in both these two rings, deep and a superficial inguinal ring. They're different in location, both they're different in shape. You about a deep ring, and then we will cover superficial inguinal ring. So deep ring is an entrance to this canal. To understand a deep ring, look into this image. Identify three anterolateral abdominal wall muscle from outward to inward. And you know these are external oblique muscle, then internal oblique muscle, and the innermost is transversus abdominis muscle. And inner to transversus abdominis, you can identify transversalis fascia. So deep inguinal ring is an oval shape opening in a fascia transversalis, not in these three muscles. This is an oval shape ring, and this is an opening in a fascia transversalis, and this is a normal anatomical opening, not a pathological opening. Opening is located 1.2 centimeter above the mid-inguinal point, as you can see, and it's lateral to inferior epigastric artery. So important point is deep inguinal ring is lateral to inferior epigastric artery. I'm summarizing these points that the deep inguinal ring is an oval shaped opening. This opening is in a fascia transversalis. It's located 1.2 centimeter above the mid inguinal point and it's immediately lateral to inferior epigastric artery. Now we are going to cover superficial inguinal ring. Superficial, like deep was the entry point, superficial inguinal ring is the exit of this canal. To identify it, look into this image. In this image, this is an external oblique and this one is an external oblique epineuritis. And superficial inguinal ring is a triangular shape gap, not an oval shape. Deep was an oval shape. So it's a triangular shape or a V-shaped gap in an external oblique epineuritis and its base is located at the pubic crust. So after talking about inguinal canal, its location, shape, entry and exit points, now I will explain you about the boundaries of this canal. Will only understand it if you will keep in your mind that inguinal canal is just like a tunnel that I have already again and again told you. So that is a passing through a thick wall. So keeping it in your mind, so focus on this image. You can see here the anterior wall of this canal is formed along its whole length. Mean whole length of inguinal canal is 4 centimeter or 1.5 inch. So whole 1.5 inch or 4 centimeter of canal is formed by skin followed by superficial fascia, then external oblique epineuritis. But lateral one third of this anterior wall, not a medial two third, lateral one third is reinforced by the fleshy fibers of an internal oblique muscle. It means this canal is strengthened on its lateral side. So now look for a posterior wall. Posterior wall is formed along its whole length by a fascia transversalis, extraperitoneal tissue and a parietal peritoneum, but the medial two-third is reinforced by a conjoint tendon and the reflected part of inguinal ligament. In a posterior wall, it's reinforced or it's strengthened on a medial side, and anterior wall is strengthened on its lateral side. Here in the posterior wall, I have told you it's also formed by a conjoint tendon, and you know very well conjoint tendon is formed by epineurotic fibers of a two major abdominal wall muscle, and these major abdominal wall muscle are internal oblique muscle and a transversus abdominis muscle. So transversus internal oblique they combine together to form a conjoint tendon. Now we'll talk about the roof of inguinal canal. Roof of inguinal canal is just like arched in form. There are the arching fibers of internal oblique and transversus abdominis, and you know very well internal oblique and transversus abdominis combined they are called as conjoint tendon. So conjoint tendon is going to form arch like fibers and it is going to strengthen the roof. And if I talk about floor, just remember like you are walking on an inguinal ligament, so it is going to form a floor of an inguinal canal. So inguinal ligament is going to form floor of this canal. Regarding a content, they're quite easy. It's not so much difficult because this is a canal or a passage, and of course, it have to allow some structures to pass in a male and female, and there are the few structure which are passing in both sexes. So it is going to transmit a spermatic cord in male. It is going to allow a round ligament of a uterus in female, and it is going to transmit a ilioinguinal nerve in both male and female. About a defense mechanism of canal, what does defense mechanism mean? Because we know this inguinal canal is a site of potential weakness in abdominal wall because it's a passage. So whenever there is increase in intra-abdominal pressure, there like coughing or a heavy lifting or during a straining defecation, there is a chances that structure can herniate. Normally the structure are passing through it, like as I told you, a spermatic cord, round ligament of uterus and ilioinguinal nerve. But besides these structure, if pathologically like gut or other part is coming out or they are going to herniate, that is normally going to pass through it. This is going to happen if there are pathological weakness or there is a deficiency in a wall. Also, what are different mechanisms that are going to provide a strengthening to this wall, or what are different defense mechanism? So these defense mechanism includes a flap valve mechanism, shutter mechanism, valve mechanism, slit valve mechanism, and a guarding of rings. Oh my God, there are a lot of mechanisms. So we have to understand it. I will cover it one by one. First, I'm going to cover flap valve mechanism. As the name is going to indicate, just like a flap is going to close a valve. So you know very well that the canal is not straight, it's oblique or angled. So deep and superficial ring, of course, they are not aligned naturally or anatomically, they are not aligned. So whenever the pressure is going to raise, the anterior and the posterior wall, they're pushed together. So they're going to close this passage, so it's just going to act like a flap. So if a inguinal canal were a straight tube instead of having this oblique tube, we know very well the structure will or things will shoot out easily whenever the pressure will raise. In mechanism is a shutter mechanism. So in a shutter mechanism, just remember the roof of a canal, and I had told you roof of a canal is arch-like and it is made up of a muscle fibers of internal oblique and the transverses of abdominans. So how they work? These muscle fibers, they are arch like a dome over the canal. So whenever you are going to strain or a cuff, these abdominal muscle forcefully contract. And as these muscle contract, that arch dome that flatten out, instead of being arched, it's going to flatten out. So it's exactly like a dropping down the heavy metal security shuttle. So the pressure is tightly against the floor. The floor, we know it's a inguinal ligament. So it totally completely closes off the space inside the canal, so nothing can enter. Another mechanism is wall mechanism, also called plugging mechanism or the cork. You know, just like a bottle, on the top of a bottle, if it's open and by means of a cork you are going to plug it or you are going to close it, it's going to act like it. Although this is a minor but a fascinating reflex, it's an autonomic reflex that is going to do this valve like mechanism, and this mechanism physically blocks the exit door. And exit door of inguinal canal, you know very well, it's a superficial inguinal ring. So it's a mechanism by means of which superficial inguinal ring is being closed if a pressure is increased. But again, question is how it's going to happen. Know very well, inside canal there is a small muscle, and that muscle is cremasteric muscle. And whenever this muscle is actually going to wrap around the structure which are traveling to the testes, and we know hold the spermatic cord, and it's wrapped by means of upper these cremasteric muscle. So whenever suddenly you are going to strain and this muscle contract, it pulls the testes slightly upward, and the bulk of testes in the outer canal, it acts like a cork. It plugs up the superficial ring from inside, and in this way the superficial inguinal ring is closed. I am talking another mechanism, and you can see nature have made a lot of mechanism which are going to strengthen it, lot of mechanism which are going to close it whenever the pressure is being raised. And how hernia will occur, of course, whenever there will be some weakness or congenital issues. So slit valve mechanism is for a exit tightening. The outer exit again is the superficial inguinal ring. You know it's a V-shaped slit, and this V-shaped slit is in an aponeurosis of external oblique muscle. The side of this V, we name them as an crura. So contraction of external abdominal muscle, whenever external abdominal muscle is going to contract, it bring these crura or a margin of a superficial ring close together, and in this way this gap is closed. I'm talking about the last mechanism, that is guarding the rings. So superficial inguinal ring is guarded from behind by means of conjoint tendon, and deep ring is guarded from a front by internal oblique muscle. So in this way, this guarding mechanism also help it. If I summarize it, the inguinal canal is only an open tunnel whenever you are relaxed. The moment you are going to put pressure on your abdomen, it immediately transforms. Tunnel flattens by means of flat valve mechanism. The roof drops by means of a shutter mechanism. Entrance of this canal, they are choked itself off by acting like a sphincter, and the exit tightens by means of a slit valve mechanism. So you only develop hernia whenever there is one or more of these dynamic defense, they wear out or they fail. So what happens in hernia, how this defense mechanism wear out or fail, I will explain all this right now. So inguinal hernia, just we are talking about inguinal hernias, not femoral or all other hernias. So inguinal hernia occur whenever internal organ, that's it's usually piece of a small intestine, it pushes through a weak spot in abdominal wall muscle. It means in abdominal wall muscle normally they are the weakness and that were strengthened by means of a nature, but if they are weak, the hernia can occur because the inguinal canal is a natural defect in a wall. Indirect inguinal hernia, you have to remember it's a rule follower. It's going to follow rule. While a direct inguinal hernia, it's not going to follow rule. It's a rule breaker. So it directly comes up and it is not going to follow a rule. So it's rule breaker. So if you remember these 2 points, you will never forget. And so first I'm talking about indirect inguinal hernia, that is a rule follower. So this hernia establish the or it follows the physiological pathway, and we know a physiological pathway is through deep ring, then through inguinal canal, and then to a superficial ring. So it enters through a deep inguinal ring, it travels down through a inguinal canal, it exits through a superficial inguinal ring. So it can even travel all the way down into a scrotum. Inguinal hernia, they are usually congenital. It means they are present from a birth. So as a fetus develop the testes, they descend through inguinal canal. They are supposed to pull the sac of a peritoneum with them, and later on it seals off. So if it fails to seal, it leaves an opening or a pathway for an intestine to slide down. So it's actually linked with that of embryology. It enters the canal is lateral to the major blood vessel, that is inferior epigastric vessel. So indirect inguinal hernia are mostly they are lateral to inferior epigastric vessel. We will talk about a direct inguinal hernia. You know it's a rule breaker, so it don't bother taking the deep ring or it don't enter through a deep ring. Instead, it bursts directly through a weak spot in a posterior wall of inguinal canal, emerge straight out through a superficial ring. Because we know exit pathway is only a superficial inguinal ring, so it have to exit through a superficial inguinal ring, but it's not coming through deep ring, it is directly coming through a weak point in a posterior abdominal wall. So it's usually acquired over a time due to wear and tear, like if someone is doing a job of a heavy lifting or someone is having a chronic coughing, it can cause the weakness of abdominal wall muscle over a period of a time, and it gives a pathway for these hernia to move. So it pushes through a medial to an inferior epigastric vessel, specifically because it's a weak zone, medial to the inferior epigastric vessel. If we talk about anatomy, you will see it's a slightly weak point. So it is going to pass through a Hasselbalch triangle. For this, at least you should know the boundaries of a Hasselbalch triangle. So also cover it. Right now, I'm going to tell you the differences between direct and indirect inguinal hernia that are important for exam point of view. You can see over here. You can fix this slide and you can remember it or listen it again and again so that you can attempt the questions. If we talk about a pathway, we know very well that the indirect inguinal hernia is a rule follower, so it passes through a deep ring and it exits through a superficial inguinal ring, while direct inguinal hernia is a rule breaker. It pushes directly through a posterior wall, it exits through a superficial inguinal ring. So primary cause in an indirect, as we covered, it's a congenital due to failure of embryonic pathway to close. Normally, the pathway is being closed, but if it's not closed, the hernia can occur. And a direct inguinal hernia, they are acquired. They can be due to weakness of abdominal wall, due to straining, due to age. So that's why direct hernia are more common in old people, while you can see in direct hernia, they are more common in a young children or an adult. Also see a relation to inferior epigastric vessels, and direct inguinal hernia, they're medial to inferior epigastric vessel, while indirect inguinal hernia, they are lateral to vessel. If we look into a scrotal involvement, so indirect inguinal hernia, because they follow the rule, so they frequently descend into a scrotum, while the direct inguinal hernia, because they are rule breakers, so they rarely descend into scrotum. If you are being a doctor, of course, if you are a medical professional, or even if you are a second year student, again, of course, you have to go on a clinical side, you have to relate a thing. So what's important on a clinical side, that there is a golden rule that always examine a patient both in a standing and a supine position. We just don't focus on a supine because whenever the patient is going to stand, gravity is going to act and the weight of abdominal organ increases the intra-abdominal pressure and it makes the hidden hernia to pop out. So in this way you can diagnose a hidden hernia as well. So you can see how important just to examine a patient in a standing is. Why it's important to examine a patient in a supine position? Because if the hernia is reducible, so whenever gravity is neutralized, they are going to move back on its normal position. So it's also important. In inspection, what you have to do, you will ask the patient to cough. Whenever the patient will cough, of course intra-abdominal pressure will increase, and in this way you have to see for a bulge, that it bulge is the patient, if it was going to present with a bulge, if the bulge is going to enlarge by coughing, it means there is an hernia. Will tell you very important clinical test yet that you are going to do on a clinical side, and this is a deep ring occlusion test. So deep ring, you know very well that the indirect inguinal hernia, it's going to follow a rule, it's going to pass through a deep ring and then through a superficial inguinal ring. And deep ring, you know, it's at the level of mid inguinal point, and mid inguinal point is between anterior superior iliac spine and the pubic symphysis. So first you have to locate for a point of deep inguinal ring. Then you are going to place your thumb or a two fingers firmly over this spot, that is a point of deep inguinal ring. It means you are pressing your fingers and you are going to shut down that deep inguinal ring. You have to ask a patient to stand up and cough. So if the hernia is an indirect inguinal hernia, nothing will bulge out in an indirect inguinal hernia whenever you are going to block a deep inguinal ring. Why nothing is going to bulge out in case of indirect inguinal hernia? Because you know anatomy, you have occluded the deep ring, and the indirect inguinal hernia was a rule follower. It was passing through a deep ring, then canal, and then through a superficial ring. So how it can come out? So if the hernia is a direct hernia, whether you have occluded the ring, it will bulge or it will pop out, and it will of course pop out medial to your fingers closer to a midline. So it means in this way you can diagnose whether the hernia is direct or indirect. So I would like to say thank you so much, and please follow this channel, share it with your friends so that it can also help them out. It's just for you. Best of luck and thank you so much. Please like and subscribe this channel. Thank you.